we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Woo! We can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war, which he didn't do, are the only place that we find them. That was Tim Walz lying about his apparently time in combat. Where did that happen? Where, Minneapolis? Aren't they amazing? But CNN's Breonna Keeler, she's not assailing that, not asking any questions about that. That's not what they do. It is good to be a Democrat, isn't it? Happy Friday and welcome back. Speaking of Tim Walz not carrying a firearm into combat, even though he falsely claimed that he did, something else has emerged that the lefties in the fake checker world are fake checking because they like to lie about everything. And if they're talking, they're lying. If they're writing, they're lying. If they're sitting silently, they're lying silently. These people, can I say these people? Because these people, boy, are they just amazing. Now, Kamala Harris in 2019, when she was pretending to run for president for a little while and she didn't get a single vote, she still hasn't gotten a single vote for the primaries. She dropped out before the first primary in 2020 election where Joe Biden amazingly got more votes than anybody in the history of the country without leaving his basement. Isn't that amazing? It's good to be a Democrat. And the news media, they helped and they all voted for him too. Remarkable stuff. But when Kamala Harris was running, and President Trump made mention of this, and so he's being attacked for, nothing gets you in trouble like the truth. Because President Trump said that Kamala supports mandatory gun confiscation. And the left-wing radical extremist fakes at PolitiFact, which is just another Democrat Party front group, they have fact-checked President Trump's claim as mostly false. Mostly false. How can that be, you might ask? And the headline, Kamala Harris once backed mandatory assault weapons buybacks, period. Not anymore. And so they're attacking President Trump because they said that he's using the present tense. That's what they're saying. And they tweeted out, PolitiFact did, in 2019, Kamala Harris spoke in favor of, quote, mandatory, end quote, programs, that's the government, to buy back assault weapons. They can't tell you what an assault weapon is. They can't define an assault weapon. And how do you buy back something that you never owned in the first place, that you never sold in the first place? That's not a buyback. That is a misnomer. And when it's mandatory, what it is at the hands of the government is confiscation of firearms. And PolitiFact continues, as vice president, Harris has focused on other gun measures, period. She has not called for confiscating guns broadly. I'm sorry, what? So in 2019, now let me go to the broader text here. Kamala Harris, as a 2019 presidential primary candidate, said, quote, I support a mandatory gun buyback program, end quote. All right? And then they write outside of the quotes, for assault weapons. And she couldn't tell you what an assault weapon is. Every weapon is an assault weapon if you're assaulting somebody with it. You know, you can have a Glock with 18 rounds. That's a pistol. And if you're assaulting somebody with them, that's an assault weapon. But they don't know a semi-automatic rifle from a fully automatic. They have no idea. They don't know a pistol from a rifle. They don't know a shotgun from a, honestly. So PolitiFact says that as a 2019 presidential candidate, she said, I support a mandatory gun buyback program. And then outside of the quote, for assault weapons. We found no examples that she supports mandatory gun confiscation now. So they're conceding, they're admitting that she was talking about a mandatory gun confiscation program at the hands of the government. And the majority of guns sold in the U.S. are handguns, in unrelated news, according to PolitiFact. Former President Trump used the present tense when he said that Harris, quote, supports mandatory gun confiscation, end quote. So they're fact-checking him as wrong, right? Because he used the present tense because she somehow, although she hasn't clarified this in public, they've gone ahead and given her the benefit of the doubt because they're filth, The Harris campaign told the New York Times that she supports banning assault weapons, but can't define them, but not requiring their sale to the federal government. Okay. As vice president, Harris has urged states to pass red flag laws. I red flag every Democrat as a threat to the people around them. And supported federal gun safety legislation. That's the party-issued propaganda language, gun safety legislation. Gun safety is keeping guns out of the hands of Democrats because they're the ones shooting everybody, just by the way. Take a look at Washington, D.C. Last year, 2023, we had a 25 or 26-year high in homicides. And every stinking one of them was a Democrat, because if there had been one Republican, it would have been national news, and 60 Minutes would have done 3 blocks on it. But that hasn't happened. And her gun safety legislation that included funding for mental health. I think that's a good idea. So that's another one the Democrats need to take advantage of. What's a woman? What's a woman? How about that? What's a child molester? Because Tim Walz also signed legislation protecting child molesters so that they can get jobs at schools and at Chuck E. Cheese. Gosh, they're amazing. So former President Donald Trump told supporters in Georgia that Vice President Kamala Harris will take away their guns and leave them totally defenseless in your house. Now, they're fact-checking him as wrong because, sure, she said that when she was running for president in 2019, but now it's been modified a little. All right, and with that, let's go to the telephones, Jeff. We're at 888-630-9625. Let's go to Stuart, calling from beautiful Round Hill, Virginia. Stuart, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
So, good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
I'm an old white guy in my mid-70s, and I'm also a range safety officer and a firearms instructor, and on a security team at our church because our pastors get so many death threats. But what I wanted to talk about was her gun buyback. And they are saying weapons of war, weapons that were designed for war. Well, every weapon has been designed for war. That's how it started. The company Beretta that supplies arms to our Army, they were founded in the 1500s making weapons of war. So how far back do they want to go to confiscate weapons of war? Flintlocks, percussions, single-shot pistols. How far back do they want to go?
What do you think the answer is to your hypothetical question?
I think they want to go all the way back to black powder days. If it can shoot a projectile, a Democrat could use it to kill somebody.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so you're a range safety officer, you're a firearms instructor, and because Democrats are anti-God and anti-Christian church and pro-Islamic terror, you have to provide security at your local church because you say your church gets threats.
Yes, sir. We've gotten, over the years, our pastor has gotten many, many death threats just for preaching the Bible. Do Muslims get death threats for preaching the Quran? I haven't heard of one.
Well, if you did, it would be a story on 60 Minutes. It would be on the front page of the Washington Post because that would be intolerable, and we would not sit idly by. The left would not sit idly by for that, and then they'd go out in the streets and chant from the river to the sea, and they would spray paint on Union Station, "Hamas is coming," while burning the American flag, which they did the day that I left for my sea cruise a couple of weeks ago, and raising the Palestinian flag and the Hamas flag because, the Democrats, aren't they amazing?
They are truly amazing.
Yeah, these are, and you said you're a man in your 70s. The Democrat Party wasn't always like this, were they?
No, I can remember Kennedy, and he, well, like you've said before, he would be drummed out of the Democratic Party today.
Yeah, he'd be a Republican today, is what he'd be. He'd be more conservative than Mitt Romney, and so would Bobby Kennedy. And look what happened to them.
And that's why I'm surprised that Junior was trying to run.
Yeah,
because,
RFK Jr. Yeah, and the Democrats just granted parole to Sirhan in California last year, and they're still waiting for Governor Gavin Newsom to sign the paper to let him walk out of prison, but the Democrat parole board actually granted Sirhan, who shot and killed Bobby Kennedy, granted him parole last year. And as I like to say, because it's true, Stuart, that in today's America, the Democrat Party is actually closer on the political spectrum to Lee Harvey Oswald than they are to John F. Kennedy. And they're closer on the political spectrum to Sirhan than they are to Robert F. Kennedy, the senior. And that sounds like hyperbole, but it's not. We got a communist that shot John F. Kennedy in the head, or the CIA, but you got a communist, Lee Harvey Oswald, that married a Soviet woman and all of that stuff, and spent time in the Soviet Union and came to fair play for Cuba and all this, shot John F. Kennedy in the head. He's a commie. And honestly, Tim Walz is much closer on the political spectrum to Lee Harvey Oswald than he is to John F. Kennedy, who's politically right about where I am for the most part. And he was a patriotic, flag-waving American who served in the Navy in World War II, PT-109 and all that stuff. And he had his issues, certainly, marital and otherwise, but never mind that. And Bobby Kennedy, who actually served on the House Un-American Activities Committee and with Senator Joe McCarthy, anti-communist, and John F. Kennedy got us into Vietnam initially, fighting against the communist spread in Southeast Asia. And he was a big tax cutter because he knew that inspired economic growth, which led to good things for the people of the United States of America. John F. Kennedy was. And honestly, the Democrat Party is closer to Sirhan on the political spectrum than to Bobby Kennedy, and closer to the man that killed John F. Kennedy versus John F. Kennedy to commies and Islamists. The Democrat Party's gone completely insane. I mean, again, I grew up in a Democrat Party household. My mother was a John F. Kennedy Democrat, and the Democrat Party is unrecognizable today when you compare it to the Kennedy-era Democrat Party, and for that matter, the news media as well, because of the same thing, really.
And when they say Tim Walz is a moderate, he's right down the middle, I think they mean he's right down the middle between Fidel Castro and Che Guevara.
Honestly, that's about it. That's where we are today, Stuart. Great stuff. You're in Round Hill. I've got great friends that live in Round Hill. Lovely, lovely part of Virginia. Lovely place. Stuart, thank you very much. Thank you for the call.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're 100% right, of course. Carry on. The financial world is in a state of upheaval, isn't it? And it might be time to consider how we're all going to adapt. We just saw a seismic shift happen in the global financial world when Saudi Arabia declared that it may exit the petrodollar system. For 75 years now, 3/4 century, the petrodollar agreement helped to maintain the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. But that era may now be coming to an end thanks to Joe Biden and what's going on in Saudi Arabia. This change could have far-reaching effects on our economy, and that means the value of the dollar, interest rates, even your daily expenses and your retirement, right? Your future, your financial future. In times of major economic transition and upheaval, a whole lot of investors look to diversify with tangible assets, and that means gold, with its history as a safe harbor throughout all of human history, may become the go-to option for investors looking for growth potential and stability. That's why I recommend calling Advantage Gold. At Advantage Gold, they're the experts in precious metals. They can help guide you through these tumultuous and uncertain times. Give them a call today. Get smart on the subject. Call 844-368-9797 for a 100% free 2024 gold and silver kit, a great guide. Plus, mention this ad and you may qualify for a $1,300 bonus. The financial landscape is already a madhouse. Make sure that you're prepared. Write this number down now, 844-368-9797, 844-368-9797. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Yeah. What a world. And our media. I've got President Trump coming up. Press conference yesterday. Kamala actually spoke to some members of the press for I can't say a couple of minutes because it didn't go that long. President Trump had a press briefing for 63 minutes without teleprompter. Kamala, well, a couple of items I've got for you coming up. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to The Chris Plante Show.
All right, we are back. Let's go to the phones, Jeff, and I'll get to President Trump. The rest coming up shortly. Let's go to Hack, calling from Bethesda, Maryland. Hack, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Well, good morning, Chris. I'm sure you're tan, ready, and rested after traipsing around the world. But I'd just like to say that Tim Walz is the kindest, bravest, warmest, most wonderful human being I've ever known in my life.
That's about what we're ready to hear next, isn't it, Hack?
I mean, he has spent a lot of time in China, hasn't he?
More than I think any politician in the history of the country. That's a great Manchurian Candidate reference.
I knew you would get that. I knew you would get it.
And it is, that's what the news media is feeding us now, and the Democrat Party. But I repeat myself, right, Hack?
Well, yeah. Well, before you cut off for the bottom of the hour, with the senator from Minnesota saying that J.D. Vance wasn't in the military, well, she was kind of right because he was with the Air Wing, and us guys in division, we don't consider the Air Wing part of the Marine Corps.
Is that right? You're
Well, my brother was in the Air Wing, so I dog him out about that.
Yeah, well,
okay.
that's good, fun intramural stuff in the Marine Corps, but. Yeah, J.D. Vance served in the Marine Corps, young man, and he served in Iraq, unlike certain other people.
This is the Chris Plante Show.
Ah, yes. The craziest political season anybody's ever seen in the United States of America. Kamala doesn't feel the need to campaign. I've got her 90-second press conference for you coming up. President Trump held a 63-minute press conference. Kamala smirked and smugged her way through about a minute and a half and got softball questions of no particular substance from a gang of fluffers that ought to move to is it the Simi Valley? I always forget which valley it is. But we'll sort that out. Remarkable stuff. Yesterday on Fox News Channel, the business channel, Stuart Varney had a guest who was he was the White House Council of Economic Advisors chairman, Kevin Hassett. Kevin Hassett was on, and he's talking about Governor Tim Walz. Who is the Democrat running mate, of course. And he described him this way. He said, he's absolutely a tax and spend liberal. In fact, he's an avowed socialist. Well, and he declares that socialism is neighborliness. That's what he does. He describes socialism, which has murdered 100 million people since 1917. Socialism is neighborliness, he said. If, stealing everything from you is neighborly, then I guess that's true. If setting up a Gulag archipelago as neighborly, then I guess that's good. But Again, Tim Walz honeymooned in communist China. Bernie Sanders honeymooned in the USSR. They're not on our side. Hassett said, I'm sorry, Governor, socialism is Venezuela. And the really terrifying thing is that if you think of Venezuela and you think of what's going on there, the violence, the empty stores, the rioting in the streets, it's exactly what you see in Minnesota, Hassett said. You know, come on. The fact that the Democrats have chosen a Venezuelan socialist-type person who has run a state into being almost Venezuela suggests that the far left of the party has taken over, and I find it very disturbing, Hassett said. Now, I was sharing this with you yesterday, but since he took over, things have gotten very bad in Minnesota. The police forces in Minnesota have shrunk by 40%. That's 4 out of 10, nearly half. Violent crime at the same time is up 30% because Democrats love violent crime.
Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Just
That's
do
right.
the damn work.
It's neighborliness. Just do the dance. It's neighborly. That's the thing. It's neighborliness. That's what he says. No, it's the most murderous form of government the world has ever seen, but pay no attention to that. That's a no problem. Yesterday, going to dinner, went out to dinner with a friend, not my best girl last night, but went out to dinner with a friend in the neighborhood, ran into there was a car parked on the street with a Maryland license plate on it, Maryland license plate, and Wabash College license plate frame. There's a Tim Scott bumper sticker on the car, which is very unusual in Northwest Washington, D.C. But even more unusual, the bumper sticker next to that on this Infiniti, the automobile, a yellow bumper sticker says, "Save democracy, vote Republican." Save democracy, vote Republican. And I thought, well, that person's brave. I didn't check back later to see if the car had been set on fire, but that's as likely as not. Given the state of Democrat Party violence, political violence, and that's because socialism is neighborliness. Sure, they may burn your car and, loot your business, but they're just being neighborly. And Kamala Harris will raise money to bail you out if you should be one of the unfortunate ones to be arrested, but probably not charged. Just amazing stuff. All right, let's take one more phone call, Jeff. Let's go to Rachel calling from Virginia. Rachel, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hello, Chris Plant. As always, it's an honor to speak to you. I wanted to call because on TikTok, we go into lives and they're political discussions, and we have managed to gather quite an incredible, eclectic group of very smart people. We have really great debates. I moderate. So we had a girl that came in, and long story short, she said Kamala Harris doesn't need to campaign. She's got us out here campaigning for her. What they're doing is they're paying these TikTokers to go into these lives and spew their propaganda to cause problems. One guy sat in there for about 8 to 10 hours and admitted that they're getting paid to stay in these rooms, to go in, to spew their propaganda, and to cause division. And now as a moderator, it's my job to vet people kind of like your screeners. So we do our best, but they're literally getting paid by the DNC, and this is their way of campaigning.
You're 100% right about that. We talked about that on my Newsmax program, as a matter of fact. And the DNC, the Kamala campaign, the Democrats and their proxies, because they have got a lot of buffers like the Corleone family and the Godfather, they have been paying people thousands of dollars per post, TikTok influencers. And there's one woman appeared online saying that she's getting $3,000 to $10,000 per post to spread TikTok propaganda, to manipulate public opinion dishonestly and corruptly with social media. And where does this TikTok social media platform come from, Rachel?
Well, the TikTok platform, of course, is owned by the CCP.
The Chinese Communist Party.
Yes, sir. And it's a wonder why they try to shut TikTok down, because the problem is that these people are coming into groups that have genuinely educated people. So for that 8 to 10 hours that this person was in the chat, constantly just eviscerated with facts, but it was going round and round because all he was doing was spewing college propaganda, kind of like the kids that come up during college campuses when Ben Shapiro or people like that are speaking. That's the type of propaganda that they're spewing. But they get so angry when we don't fall for it because they forget that we are actually intelligent and we know what we're talking about as well. But they're getting paid. And one woman said, she says the economy is great. She just bought a house. She has a small business. She collects the checks from the DNC, but she also admitted that she's collecting EBT. That blew
no kidding.
my mind.
Wow, she's collecting checks for spreading propaganda from the DNC, and she's also collecting welfare.
Bragging about it.
And bragging about it. Commies, they're basically commies. They're corrupt. They're filthy, corrupt people. They're dishonest people. They're corrupt people. And the Democrat Party recognizes them as assets that they can use and corrupt our political systems in the name of saving democracy, right?
She said that this is the DNC and Kamala Harris's army, quote, unquote.
And it's absolutely true. And there are videos online showing that this is the case. And again, we did this subject on my show, The Right Squad, on Newsmax. And it is pure, unfiltered propaganda. Now, you just mentioned that the woman said that she bought a house with her ill-gotten gains, and she's on EBT. She's on the dole, on the taxpayer dole to buy food because they will, suck the lifeblood out of our system. It's part of a program they've had in place for a long, long time, but draining the coffers of the United States, bankrupting us. There's nothing abnormal about $34 trillion in national debt because the left is bankrupting capitalism by breaking the back of the U.S. economy. It's a plan that they worked out on college campuses going back to the 1970s, the Cloward and Piven strategy to bankrupt the United States. And these lefties would suck the lifeblood out of a tick to steal one more penny from one more random stranger. Aren't they amazing? And since you mentioned that she bought a house, Fox Channel 5 in Washington, D.C., reporting today, the District of Columbia, where I live, was ranked as the most undesirable city for the second year in a row, according to researchers at Clever Real Estate. That's the organization who surveyed 1,000 American adults in June to find out the best and worst places to live in 2024. And once again, 2 years in a row, here we are in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, because the Democrat Party are a gang of parasites, of ticks, and they're sucking the lifeblood out of everything. Again, last year we had the highest murder rate in Washington that we've had in 25 or 26 years. And, it's, who's responsible for all this, Rachel?
The DNC is.
Yeah, the Democrats.
The division that they're doing this on purpose, because another thing that they do is they report us and flag us. So I've gotten flagged by the girl with the EBT for misinformation. So then they're also censoring us at the same time. And TikTok is not reviewing any of the appeals. It's just going right through. But they're there to cause division. And it's really unfortunate because Lord Jesus could come down himself right in front of them and they still wouldn't believe it.
That is a fact. And you say you've been flagged. Governor Tim Walz in Minnesota signed a law during the Wuhan Red Death loosed by Communist China. And Communist China is where Tim Walz likes to go. It's where he honeymooned. It's where he spent a year teaching English. It's where he's been at least 30 times. And the news media doesn't ask him about that. And that's why we had our Manchurian candidate reference from an earlier caller. But here is Governor Tim Walz. This video just resurfaced. He appeared on MSDNC not so long ago, where he declared that free speech is subject to government approval. And the government, because he's basically a commie who believes that socialism is neighborliness, it's not. And that free speech is something that the government will greenlight or or red light, and it's the boot stomping on a face forever. Here is Governor Tim Walz on not believing in free speech.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Yeah, misinformation or hate speech, especially around our democracy. They're saving democracy by destroying it. Now, free speech is key to everything. And who decides what is hate speech? I declare what he just said to be hate speech, and therefore he must be prevented from speaking publicly. And the network he was on, MSDNC, also must be stopped because they're disseminating hate speech. They're spreading hate speech. I declare it to be hate speech. I declare that to be misinformation. And he says that the state, because his ethics are totalitarian, they are authoritarian. They're not the ethics of someone that appreciates freedom and liberty. And he is spreading misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech while calling for disinformation, misinformation, and hate speech to be banned by the government. Now, honestly, socialism is not neighborliness, and free speech is not subject to government approval, or it ceases to be free speech, just by the way. Am I wrong about anything in there, Rachel?
Absolutely not. You're 100% correct, and most of America agrees with you.
Yeah, I would hope so. And honestly, they're here. They're coming for our rights. It's another one of my sayings. The left is coming for your rights, and they're coming. I played it a little while ago, Rachel. The confiscating your firearms. That's the Second Amendment. An armed man is a citizen. An unarmed man, a man who's been disarmed by the state, is a subject and not a citizen. And the left is here. These people are not liberals. They're the left. They're coming for your free speech rights. I was just talking to a man, Stuart, who has to do armed security at his church because of the threats that the pastor gets at his church. They're coming for your right to freely practice your religion. They're coming for your right to free speech. They're coming for your right to bear arms. The left is coming for your rights. They are not on the side of the Bill of Rights. They're not on the side of the Constitution. They're not on the side of the United States of America, but they are on the side of Hamas and chanting from the river to the sea. They're on the side of Venezuelan gangs. They're on the side of China sending fentanyl in the United States, enough to kill tens of thousands of Americans every year. They are not on our side. Boy, are they not on our side. Rachel, great call. Keep up the fight, because freedom and liberty are under assault in the United States of America, and the culprit is the Democratic Party.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And where they draw the line is they're also coming after our children. So
yeah.
I will do whatever it takes. Most of us will to protect our kids.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because when we come back, I'm going to share with you what Tim Walz did in Minnesota when it comes to children and pedophiles. That is to say, child molesters. Like Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton's internship program and so on and so on. Amazing times we're in. Thank you, Rachel. Your feet support you. You may have noticed throughout all your summer adventures, every day, every night. Maybe you're tired of shoes that promise comfort but fail to deliver. Introducing G-Defy shoes with VersaShock technology. Unlike ordinary brands of shoes, G-Defy shoes offer superior shock absorption and trampoline-like energy return. I've got a pair. My best girl have a pair. We do love them. We hike around the city in them, helping to provide relief from foot pain, knee, ankle, even discomfort in the back. I love my shoes. And, whether you're an athlete, a busy parent, or just always on the go like so many of us, G-Defy shoes offer the comfort and versatility you crave. So say goodbye to discomfort and say hello to unparalleled support this summer. Every pair includes 2 free supportive orthotics, 2 different sets, and special lateral stabilizer to improve your gait, your stride, the way you run and walk. As a listener to this show, you get to enjoy a special summer offer. Visit gdefy.com and get $20 off your order of $100 or more with the code CHRIS. That's GDEFY, GDEFY.com. Don't forget to use the code CHRIS for $20 off your order of $100 or more. Experience the ultimate summer comfort with G-Defy shoes. Visit gdefy.com today. Yeah, speaking of coming for your children, they're coming for your right to practice your religion, your right to free speech, your right to bear arms. You might begin to think that they're not on our side. He loves communist China. He honeymooned there. He's visited there 20 times. He lived there for a year. He is the Manchurian candidate. And the only group of people more corrupt than them have to be the news media.
There's only one Chris Plant. The Chris Plant Show.
Just talking about the Democrat Party coming for your free speech and threatening your pastor and coming for a mandatory buyback. There is no such thing as a buyback when the government is forcing you to hand over your constitutionally protected firearms, but never mind that. And then Rachel said, and they're coming for your kids too. I said they're coming for your First Amendment rights, your Second Amendment rights. Rachel said they're coming for your kids too. Well, Tim Walz, as governor of Minnesota, signed a bill making Minnesota a sanctuary state for child sex changes. So if anyone under the age of 18 as dealing with issues goes to Minnesota, says, I want to be a girl when it's a boy, I want to be a boy when it's a girl, then Minnesota will not allow the parents to take custody of their own children, right? Furthermore, the Minnesota Human Rights Act now bans discrimination based on sexual orientation, right? And Republicans tried to build in language that said, we're not talking about pedophiles, right? And the Democrats defeated that effort by the Republicans. So the so-called Minnesota Human Rights Act actually bans discrimination against pedophiles. So if a pedophile, an admitted bragging pedophile, online pedophile, wants a job at Chuck E. Cheese or at a school, the law in Minnesota prevents discrimination, that's what they call it, against a pedophile. They're coming for your children. Pedophiles are a protected class. And children, now what is it with Democrats and sex change surgery and treatment for children? It's always the children. This party is a danger to civilization itself, and they love Hamas.